I've been living in other people's houses since I was 13. Some call it squatting, some call it trespassing, but for me, it's always been something darker. I don't do it for food or shelter anymore. I do it because disappearing into someone else's life makes my pulse race, because being unseen proves I exist. They call us froggers, ghosts with beating hearts. We slip into pristine homes, into closets and crawl spaces, and we watch without ever being noticed. That's the thrill. That's the rule. You're there, and they never know. But the ranch in Utah, it broke every rule. I found it one night on satellite maps, a perfect square of green in the middle of endless desert. No records, no ownership, no explanation. Just an orchard, a house, and a family that shouldn't have existed there. People warned me not to try. They said rural families don't play games, that I'd end up buried if I ever set foot on their land. I should have listened. Because now, when I close my eyes, I can still hear the sound of that hatch opening. I can still smell the blood rising from the basement. And I know, without a doubt, that I saw something no intruder was ever meant to see. I never had a home of my own. My mother abandoned me as an infant, left in a duffel bag at a fire station. From there, it was orphanages that smelled of bleach and loneliness, foster houses that treated me like an unwanted stray. Some starved me, others locked me in closets. I ran at 9 years old and never looked back. At first, survival was all I knew. I learned how to sneak into empty garages, how to hide in unfinished homes under renovation. Over time, I realized it was safer, thrilling even, to hide in places that weren't empty. Families were predictable. They had routines. Once you learned their rhythms, you could vanish between the cracks of their lives, and they would never notice. That was the moment survival turned into obsession. Years passed, and I became more than a runaway. I became a phantom. They called us froggers, not squatters, not burglars, froggers. We didn't steal, we didn't destroy, we simply existed inside someone else's everything. In hidden forums buried in the dark corners of the internet, I became a name they recognized, a legend. I had lasted months undetected. I had hidden inside the walls of mansions, under floorboards, in closets inches away from sleeping families. I'd won every challenge they threw at me. Longest undetected stay, most absurd hiding place, most dangerous infiltration. They came to me for advice. They pinned my posts to the top. But no digital glory compared to the rush of being inside a house that wasn't mine, unseen and untouchable. I thought I'd seen it all. Mansions in the hills, underground bunkers stocked for the end of the world, families so predictable I could anticipate their next breath. Then one night, scrolling satellite maps after a job in Boulder, I saw it. A rectangle of impossible green carved into the wasteland of Utah's deadlands. An orchard, crops, a farmhouse, perfectly isolated, surrounded by nothing but scorched earth for miles. I dug deeper, expecting some record, some trace of who lived there. Nothing. The property didn't exist on official maps, as if someone had scrubbed it clean. I should have ignored it, but the forum baited me. You won't try it, they said. Even you know better. I didn't know it then, but that was the last ordinary night of my life. 2 days later, I stood at the edge of that lush green square, staring at a ranch that smelled alive, while the desert behind me burned my skin raw. The air was cooler inside the boundary. My hand pressed against the soil, and I felt something, warm, humming faintly, like the earth itself was breathing. That's when the family appeared. The father, broad and tan, wiping his hands with a rag. The mother carrying a tray of glasses, followed by 3 children who laughed as they chased a dog across the grass. It was too perfect, too untouched. And all I could think was, this is where I'll vanish next. I never belonged anywhere. My earliest memory isn't of a mother's face or a warm bed. It's white walls that smelled of disinfectant and the hollow echo of too many children crying. My mother abandoned me at a fire station when I was just a baby. From there, it was a carousel of orphanages and foster homes, each one colder than the last. Rules that changed with every new family. Punishments that left bruises. Promises that broke as soon as they were spoken. Some withheld food when I misbehaved. Others locked me in closets. By the time I was 9, I had learned that running away was the only freedom that ever truly existed. I wandered for weeks, stealing food from convenience stores, sneaking into garages and sleeping under parked trucks. It wasn't long before I discovered something that would shape my entire existence. Hiding in places that weren't empty. At first, I slipped into empty houses during renovations, but eventually I realized it was safer, thrilling even, to hide in places that were full. Families were predictable. They had routines. Once you learned their rhythms, you could vanish between the cracks of their lives, and they would never notice. That was the moment survival turned into obsession. Years passed, and I became more than a runaway. I became a phantom. They called us froggers, not squatters, not burglars, froggers. We didn't steal, we didn't destroy, we simply existed inside someone else's everything. In hidden forums buried in the dark corners of the internet, I became a name they recognized, a legend. Stay. Most dangerous house, most absurd hiding spot. They pinned my posts, they asked for my advice. But glory on a screen could never compare to the rush of standing inches away from someone's life, knowing they couldn't feel the weight of your presence. That thrill was my drug, and I had been using for years. Then one night, scrolling through satellite maps after a clean job in Boulder, I saw it. At first I thought it was a glitch, a perfect square of green etched into the middle of Utah's deadlands. Around it, nothing but sand and crumbling stone for miles. Inside the boundary, an orchard, rows of crops, a farmhouse with a wraparound porch. Too vibrant, too alive. I dug deeper. The county database had no record, no deed, no ownership, nothing. I cross-referenced every mapping service I knew. The same blank space. It was as though the ranch didn't exist. I should have ignored it. But the forum saw my post. They mocked me, dared me. "You won't do it," one wrote. "Even you know better." Another added, "Out there, they'll bury you in the pasture before you even reach the porch." That should have been enough to stop me, but it wasn't. 2 days later, I stood at the edge of that impossible green square. The desert behind me burned with heat so fierce it clawed moisture from my lungs. But the air inside the property was cool. The line where sand ended and grass began was sharp, unnatural, marked by a faint trace of gray in the soil, as though something had been buried beneath it. I stepped over, and for the first time in years, I felt like I wasn't the one doing the watching. The first night I settled into the ranch, everything felt too perfect. From my hiding place behind a loose wall panel, I listened to the rhythm of their lives, the clatter of dishes, the soft patter of children's feet, the quiet laughter of parents who seemed untouched by the world's cruelty. It was almost enough to lull me into believing this place was safe. Almost. But then I heard it, the mother's voice, low and deliberate, drifting through the walls. "We'll need fresh meat soon," she said. At first I assumed she meant livestock, maybe venison, maybe goat, but her tone made my skin crawl. The father answered with a grunt, his words muffled, but one line stuck. "Not the thin ones. The land won't respond." The land. Respond. I tried to shake it off, but unease burrowed into me like a splinter. Later that same night, I found something that confirmed my fear. While searching for a better hiding spot, I noticed a strange indentation beneath the kitchen rug. Peeling it back, I uncovered a wooden hatch nailed shut with a thin brass handle. My heart hammered as I pried it loose. Cold air seeped out, damp and sour, carrying the scent of soil and iron. A staircase descended into blackness. Every instinct screamed at me to close it, to pretend I had never found it. But curiosity, my oldest, deadliest companion, pushed me forward. I clicked my flashlight. Its beam dimmed beneath cloth, and crept down. The basement stretched wide, braced with timber beams. Rusted chains dangled from hooks. The floor was stained in irregular patches, dark and deep. Along the far wall, bones were piled in bins, too many to belong to livestock. Jars lined shelves, filled with liquid so dark they seemed to swallow the light. I froze. A sound broke the silence, the creak of the hatch above me. Footsteps descended, slow and steady. I killed the light and pressed myself behind a stack of crates, breath caught in my throat. The family entered. The father carried something heavy over his shoulders, a body. A woman, limp and unconscious, her belly swollen as if near term. The mother followed, clutching a bundle wrapped in red cloth. Behind them came two figures in black robes, faces hidden, carrying jars that sloshed with something thick and red. And in that instant, I realized this was no ordinary family. This was no ordinary home. I had stepped into a ritual I was never meant to see. I should have left that night. I should have run into the desert with blistered feet and cracked lips until my lungs collapsed. But instead, I stayed. That was always my weakness. Curiosity heavier than survival. The hunger to know more than I should. From my place in the shadows, I watched the family lay the unconscious woman across a butcher's slab. Her belly rose tight and round, her breath shallow. The robed figures dipped bone daggers into jars of blood and drew symbols across the stone floor, circles within circles, lines that flared faintly in the lantern light. The father received a curved dagger wrapped in red cloth. He touched her forehead almost tenderly, then drove the blade into her chest. I bit down on my knuckle to keep from making a sound.
as her eyes flew open, her body seizing violently. Blood welled across the grooves of the pentagram, soaking it until it seemed to breathe. And then, silence. The mother placed a severed goat's head where the woman's own had been. Salt scattered in precise patterns. The air grew freezing, sharp enough to sting my lungs. Chains rattled without wind. The robed men began chanting in a language I had never heard, guttural and sharp, their words colliding in clicks and hisses. The body twitched, once, twice, then rose upright. I should have fainted. I should have screamed. Instead, I crouched deeper into the crates, trembling so violently I thought the wood itself might give me away. The goat's head tilted, its milky eyes rolling toward the family. Its mouth opened, and a voice older than stone rasped from its throat. "Why have you summoned me?" The father bowed his head. "The crops are dying. The air takes more than it gives. We beg your blessing." The creature's chest swelled, the pregnant belly beneath the goat's head convulsing. "You have wasted blood. I will not take offerings in such circumstance." The robed figures whispered to each other. One replied, "Then we will abandon this site for a day. We will cleanse and begin again." They left, sealing the hatch from above. I should have felt relief. Instead, dread closed around me like a fist. Because before the last echo faded, the thing turned its head toward me. "I know you're here." I clamped my eyes shut, praying it couldn't see me, but its voice slithered across the floor, heavy as smoke. "You have been watching. We are alike, you and I." I pressed harder into the crates, my body rigid with terror. "You want to leave, but they will burn this house tomorrow. They will scour every wall, every hiding place. They will find you, unless you help me." Silence. Then, "Break the salt." The words cut into me like a hook. I shook my head, though it couldn't see me. My hands trembled, my breath stuttered. If I stayed, I would be found. If I ran, I would be hunted. If I obeyed, I would unleash something I could never control. But desperation speaks louder than reason. I dragged my boot across a single line of salt. It scattered with a whisper. The circle broke. The creature arose, limbs unfolding with obscene fluidity. It stepped over the broken seal and stood before me, towering and impossible. I should have been crushed, but instead it extended one blood-soaked hand. I don't remember choosing, I only remembered the chill that ran through me as I reached forward and touched it. The room shuddered. Dust rained from the beams. A gust of wind roared upward as if the earth itself exhaled. Then it was gone. But upstairs, screams erupted. I crept up, every step shaking beneath me. What I found in the kitchen was slaughter. The robed men torn in half, their bodies discarded like broken dolls. The father pinned against the wall, his throat ripped open. The mother sprawled on the floor, eyes glassy, blood soaking her dress. And in the center, the creature. The goat's head, slack-jawed, the pregnant body pulsing as if something enormous writhed inside. It turned when it sensed me. For one breath, I thought it would kill me too. But it stopped. It crouched, folded its arms, and whispered, My wish. I ran. I don't know why I didn't keep running forever, but the invisible barrier stopped me cold at the edge of the property. I clawed, punched, screamed. Nothing broke through. And when I turned, it was there, inches away, its breath steaming against my face. My wish, it repeated. You must raise my kin. I didn't understand until its belly swelled grotesquely. It groaned, nails gouging the dirt, and, with a wet, sickening cry, it birthed something onto the ground. The thing was no larger than a toddler, covered in coarse hair, its limbs jointed, wrong, wings slick and leathery against its back. Its eyes opened immediately, milky but alert. It blinked once and stared at me. I should have killed it. I tried. I smashed a rock against its head until my arms gave out, but when the stone cracked its skull, it giggled. Then it looked at me and said, "Dad."
I don't remember what happened after. Only that I woke in the house, the creature curled against my chest, humming softly like a child. Days blurred into weeks. Every attempt to kill it failed. Knives bent, bullets misfired. Even my own suicide attempts left me waking unharmed, the thing giggling by my side. Time decayed, the house rearranged itself. Symbols carved into the land revealed patterns from above, shapes older than memory. And the creature changed. Its skin smoothed, its teeth straightened, the wings receded. Day by day it imitated me, copying how I ate, how I walked, how I spoke, until one night, as the stars spiraled unnaturally overhead, I turned and saw it standing in the doorway. No longer a beast, no longer a child. It was human, and it looked just like me. The night it revealed its final form, I realized there was no line left between me and it. It stood in the doorway of the farmhouse, its features eerily perfect, its posture calm, but its eyes swirling with gray smoke that never stilled. The circular mark on its forehead pulsed faintly with light like an ember refusing to die. It smiled at me, my own smile reflected back, but wrong in a way I couldn't describe. "I am you," it whispered, and then the house began to shake. The walls groaned, symbols hidden in the beams igniting like fire. Windows shattered inward, spraying glass that never touched me. The air thickened, vibrating with a low hum that made my teeth rattle. From beneath the floorboards, voices rose, hundreds of them, chanting in languages my ears weren't meant to hear. The creature, my reflection, extended its arms wide, its skin cracked along the seams, light spilling from the fractures. The roof above us split, revealing a sky I didn't recognize. Stars spun in slow spirals, constellations rearranging into shapes that looked like eyes, mouths, clawed hands. I bolted for the door. The barrier outside still held, an invisible wall that seared my skin when I slammed against it. Behind me, the thing's laughter followed, low and guttural, echoing across the fields. I turned back, desperation blinding me. It was no longer just standing. It was growing, the body stretched upward, bones snapping into new alignments. Its mouth opened, splitting too wide, and from its throat poured a voice layered with 1,000 others. "You set me free. Now you will stay." The ground beneath me split open, exposing a pit lined with bones glowing faintly red. I clung to the porch rail, my knuckles white, as the air pulled toward the abyss. I grabbed the shotgun I had hidden, the same one that had failed me before. I fired. This time the shot ripped through the creature's chest, blasting fragments of light and flesh. It staggered, screeched, and for a moment I believed. But then the wound sealed. The light inside it burned brighter. It lunged. Its hand wrapped around my throat, lifting me effortlessly. My feet dangled above the porch. Spots filled my vision as its face hovered inches from mine. My own face, smiling. "You belong here," it said. With the last of my strength, I ripped the silver charm from the dead father's necklace, the only thing I hadn't dared touch until now, and pressed it against its skin. The mark on its forehead flared. A scream tore through the ranch, and the creature convulsed violently. Its grip loosened. I collapsed onto the boards, gasping as the house buckled around us. For a moment, I thought I had won. When the scream faded, silence pressed against my ears like a heavy weight. The house no longer shook. The sky above looked almost normal again, though the stars seemed to twitch at the edges of my vision. I forced myself to stand, clutching the silver charm until the metal cut into my palm. The creature was gone, or at least it wasn't where it had stood a moment ago. In its place on the porch was only a smear of blackened ash, faintly pulsing before it dissolved into the cracks of the wood. I wanted to believe it was over. I wanted to believe that somehow, against all reason, I had survived the impossible. But the ranch was unchanged. The barrier still hummed at the property line, invisible and unbreakable. No matter how many times I ran at it, no matter how much I screamed, the wall remained. The desert beyond it might as well have been another universe. Inside the farmhouse, everything had been reset. The blood was gone. The walls were clean. The family's photographs hung neatly, their faces smiling as if nothing had ever happened. The kitchen smelled faintly of bread, warm and sweet. I stood in the doorway, shaking, and realized the truth. The ranch had chosen me. I wasn't leaving, not tonight, not ever. And then, from somewhere deep within the house, I heard it. A laugh. Small, innocent, a child's laugh. I froze, heart hammering. Slowly, the sound drew closer, light footsteps padding across the floor. When I turned, I saw it. A boy, no older than 6, dark hair, pale skin, my eyes staring back at me. He smiled and whispered, "Dad." That's where my story ends. At least, the part I can still tell. The ranch has no beginning and no end. It is a cage disguised as paradise, and I am its prisoner. Days bleed into nights, and nights into something far worse. The boy, my reflection, my shadow, never leaves my side. He laughs, he mimics, he waits. And every time he calls me Dad, something inside me dies a little more. I used to believe Froggers were ghosts, unseen, untouchable. But I know now I was wrong. I'm not the ghost here. I'm the sacrifice. So, if you ever find yourself scrolling late into the night, staring at satellite maps, and you see a square of impossible green carved into the desert, don't go there. Don't step across the line, because if you do, you won't come back.